All right, Harry, out of all the sins that we could participate in our daily life, which one do you think is the most destructive?
In my mind, it's lying.
Well, what makes you say that?
Well, it's the ingredient in all the other sins in my mind, because all the things that we do in all our day-to-day walk, it's kind of one of the ingredients that is in every recipe. One of the simplest ones is our pride. That is still the one that I struggle with more than any other problem. And pride, what is there to be proud of? We're kidding ourselves.
You're lying to yourself that
Yeah, because if I realize really what God has done in my life and all the privileges I have, and even how we're made, how our fingers work, how our mind works, how everything works, how the sun comes up in the morning and goes down at night, and
all the
everything.
glory would be for him instead of looking at ourselves.
Yeah, and yet somehow we have this little bit of an accomplishment by the grace of God, and
Hmm.
and yet I somehow fall into the trap on a regular basis to give myself credit for it, and say things that are unnecessary. Like, why did I say that? Why did I have to draw attention to myself? But yet
Hmm.
it's something I struggle with. Um, More, well, by far more than any other thing. Like, so a lot of the also by the grace of God, in the last 5 to 10 years, the Lord has melted away many of the other sins as I've learned to surrender to Him. But pride is still one that I struggle with.
Can you give us
Also,
another example of like something else that lying ties into in another sin then?
yeah, okay. Like, for example, we're as a Christian, of course, there's some things that we really don't, hopefully don't get involved with. Like, we hopefully don't murder anybody. Hopefully adultery is not on our list. Hopefully. So if those things, but those things are also based on a lie. They're the main ingredient in is to misunderstand other people. Like, it's uh, yeah, like it's built right into it.
Like you're lying to your spouse if you commit adultery, saying that you would have been faithful at the beginning when you took your vows, for example.
Yeah, exactly. It's all based on deceit, and yeah. So even things like stealing, that's obviously you're taking something from somebody else without their knowledge. It's but the lie in that, and that you're trying to cover this up, you're trying to take stuff without their knowledge, and so on. Actually, if I think back to, it was the in the second last chapter of Revelation, it talks about the people that go to the lake of fire, and all it says that all liars. And when I read that about 10 years ago, I thought, my, that's something that is so common in my life, just that half truths and things like that. Not, I mean, I don't really think I'm very guilty of ever telling an outright lie, but often I don't tell the whole truth. And that is really not, that's still a lie. Like in the Garden of Eden, that's how it all got started. Satan says to the woman, he says, I hear you can't participate in all these trees. And well, she says, yeah, she says, we can, except for the one tree in the middle of the garden. And Satan says, well, why is that? Well, God said that if we participate in that tree, eat the fruit of that tree, that we're going to die. And Satan says, well, you not surely die. He says, God doesn't want you to eat from that, because then you'd be just like him, knowing right from wrong. So she participated in that, and that's how we got started in this sin world. It was a half lie, because they didn't die that week or that
Mhm.
year, but they all died. Just like all the descendants have all died. We're 100% sure that we're all going to die. And that's part of the world of sin. But Satan says, well, you shall not surely die. Well, you'll live for a while, but death is part of sin. And that's how, the lie started in the Garden of Eden. It finishes in the book of Revelation, those that go to the lake of fire. But it's also the ingredient of all the other sins. Uh, to me, it's the one that is just really, really pervasive. I find it really hard to always be totally truthful, to tell people the truth, to be totally honest. It's a stretch, but I certainly watch for that.
And for me too, like I just I believe personally it takes you to that next level of Christianity is when you're speaking 100% truth, no matter what the situation is, how awkward it is. I've heard people ask me before, they say, what about telling to not hurt somebody's feelings, shall we say? Is it acceptable then? What would you say to somebody who asks a question like, is it acceptable then?
No, it's really not. Like, and if a person has a reputation for being truthful, it gets to be more and more normal. If they're hurt, they're hurt. So be it. You're certainly not helping anybody by telling them something that isn't true. And besides, it's amazing how God helps us with those situations and walks us through it and gives us strength and helps us to get better at it. The lie is a lie, and we just really, and not that we're going to get victory over it completely. We're still human, but there's still always a few weeds in our garden. So, but we really have to focus on it. I think, well, I know we have to focus on it, because truth, Jesus said to Pilate, he says, truth is why I came, and that's the reason I came into the world. And truth is the opposite to the lie. And truth is what Christianity professes. Everything in the Bible, everything Jesus, let me put it that, all the red ink is truth. And we have to make sure that we're focused on that. That's what Jesus said. And
He also said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to, which is a perfect one, right?
I hadn't thought of that. That's excellent. Yeah, for sure. On this topic is exactly right. That's the opposite. That's the opposite to the lie. And that's what Jesus represented. And that's what we need to represent.
Amen. For sure. Thanks, Harry.
Good.